Welcome to another program here where we are dissecting leadership, and we're looking at what makes an outstanding leader. Well, you see, I've always said that the mark of an outstanding leader is not how good a leader you are. You know, the technical stuff around leadership. It's about how many leaders you create. And we've looked at leadership with so many incredible guests over the last few months and looked at leadership in from so many different directions. Today, I've got an awesome guest. She's a really, really good friend of mine and somebody that I absolutely admire. Sunita Passi is a celebrated Ayurvedic practitioner, entrepreneur, and author. And before you ask yourself, what has that got to do with leadership? You're going to have to just listen to Sunita because, to be quite honest, she always manages to blow me away. Sunita is an author of the book Doctor Won't See You Now, which was something that she wrote over lockdown, wasn't it, Sunita?
That's right, yes.
And gave us some really good insights on an alternative way of thinking. And Ayurveda, if I'm right, is a 5,000-year-old Indian healing system that originated in India. And I can't think of anybody else in the world right now who I would go to learn about Ayurveda than Sunita, to be quite honest. So I'm quite lucky in my life to have Sunita. So Sunita, thank you so much and welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you, Kul. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, listen, we've had a conversation just before we press record here and realised that we'd been talking for 25 minutes, just catching up. But you know, when you have that kind of friendship where you literally could carry on talking, and Sunita and I have had coffees before that have gone cold and we've had to order it goodness knows how many times because we just talk. And I'm so enthralled by what she has to say. So Sunita, listen, we haven't seen each other literally since before lockdown. That was like 2 years ago. And you've just told me about all the incredible things that you've been doing over lockdown. Now, I think that first and foremost, a real test of leadership is how people have responded to this incredible challenge that we've all been faced with over the last 2 years. Tell me what you've been doing over lockdown.
A lot of us are checking in with ourselves right now. I think both of us agree with that. And when it all kicked off, I sat still first and just observed what was happening around me. I'm a practitioner. I work with clients one-on-one. I'm also a teacher. I have many students, and then I'm also the founder of a skincare brand. So we're also working with hotels and spas and clinics and wellness centres. So there's a whole variety of conversations that were going on. And just in that moment, I just thought, actually, I could feel, that this was something that was not going to go away overnight, and really what came to me was that how can I be best in service, during this time? It was obvious that the doors were going to close on a lot of the things that we were doing. Then we had, in the early part of lockdown, obviously we weren't seeing individuals face to face and in contact. And I could really kind of see, people were dealing with it in so many different ways. So what birthed for me during lockdown, two big things. First of all, I've been thinking about my book for years. And Kul, I always thought my first book would be a practitioner book because I've been teaching therapists and practitioners for 17 years now. My training academy launched in 2005. And I always thought my first published book would be for them. And actually what came out of it was because so many, questions that were coming up were all about health and well-being. It was obvious people, if they had certain conditions or ailments, they weren't going to be able to see their GP immediately. And I realized that actually my book it's for everyone. It needs to give them the confidence that actually they do have tools, in their hands, at their fingertips. But it's there is a book on Ayurveda and all the tools within the health system. It's much more philosophical than that. So it's bigger picture. It's also looking at our reaction to things. I've talked about social media in there. I've talked about spirituality in the future. It's quite, in essence, more of a deep dive, but, so it's not just about plants and herbs and treatments and yoga. It's really, about how to stay healthy.
Yeah, it's clear to me that you've gone way beyond this.
Yeah, way beyond that.
I think you're so right. And I think it's the right thing for you to have done to expand beyond what you would ordinarily perhaps talk about. Because there's this phrase, isn't there? Health and well-being, you've just used it. And, I'm working with all sorts of incredible organizations to help them to get their cultures back on track, to get their people back on track, and to build resilience again. And health and well-being is right at the very heart of it. So, I mean, this program is all about human-centered leadership. It's all about having the right kind of leadership where you create an environment, a culture where people feel appreciated, where people feel seen and heard and valued. Well-being sits right at the heart of all of that. So what sort of things should leaders be looking at right now, do you think, to keep their staff, their people at the very best that they can be?
Well, if we have a look at the last 10 years and we think about, and we use the word as we were chatting together, but it's been a traumatic experience for most people. It's been very, very difficult. A lot of their comforts, a lot of their safety was taken away. So as a leader, the first thing I would say is consider the kind of environment that you are facilitating at the moment, for your staff, for your employees. Does it feel safe? Do people feel heard? Do they feel listened to? Are you holding that space and acknowledging that actually pretty much all of your employees have been through something that they've never experienced before? So I think it's really important that we are, that we're all part of the same collective experience, and we have to really, really honour that. And I feel that has to come first. Otherwise, it's just copy and paste.
We can't be the people that we were.
We can't.
We have to be different.
We have to be different. And we've been given we've been given this opportunity. We're intelligent beings. We have to take more conscious choices. So that would be the first thing. And I think that's where it's good to work with other individuals who can assist leaders in actually creating that better space, in actually understanding on a deeper level what their employees have been through, in helping them understand about, even the basic experiences of life, food, understanding, how food makes a difference to our health. This is all transformative. It's probable that a good number of leaders could do with some education around all of these things. So I think first it starts with them actually, understanding and holding that space, but then also understanding what the potential tools are. And then thirdly, I would consider that most organisations really should have some sort of wellness concepts, within the organisation. So whether that be a practitioner who comes in that employees can tap into when they feel they need it, whether that's a once a week session where they hold a workshop, where actually things can be discussed as well, because holding these within is not going to help anyone. It's and I think this is all about all organisations having a health upgrade, but not in a superficial way, because it's very easy to tick boxes. This in order for us to really make a difference, we have to also authentically deliver this service. And that's what it's all about. I see, even in when I look at, companies and people are marketing all sorts of stuff, and let's be honest, half of it is just its words, its content. And unfortunately, this isn't what's going to help, this isn't what's going to help the individuals working for organizations. This isn't what's going to help humanity as a whole. We have to be real, and we actually have to, actually work, in a conscious way and provide transformative experiences that really do take people through to the other side.
In a different language, and to exemplify what you're talking about here is one of the things that we do, for example, is cultural audits. So we'll go into the organization, we'll test to see what the culture of that organization looks like. Does it feel happier? Does it feel that people feel safe and heard and valued and all of these things? Does it feel like an environment in which people feel that they can grow and they are growing and thriving as opposed to just surviving? And you're describing exactly the same thing, but from a health perspective. And I think that's so very important. And you know, there are terminologies that are created, isn't there, and thrown about and bandied about, and health and well-being is currently right up there. But I know that when you talk about health and well-being, well, of course, you're talking from a 5,000-year-old ancient tradition. Basis of everything that you talk about is Ayurveda. I want to talk about your business. I want to talk about what it is that you've done, because as a leader, you have to demonstrate that ability to be agile, to be adaptable, to bring about change in the way that you do whatever it is, whether it's the way that you look after your staff, the way that you run your organization. And for you, you've been challenged as a leader over the last 2 or 3 years. So how have you dealt with the challenges that the COVID-19 and the whole pandemic and the lockdown brought to you? Your business, particularly the spa element of it, well, that was one of the biggest industries that were affected by the whole lockdown experience. So how is it that you've thrived through that? Because you haven't just survived, you have grown, you've survived, you've taken on new people, all this kind of stuff. I'm really intrigued by that.
Yeah, it's been the biggest learning curve for me. And do you know, Cole, I think I needed it. I think actually prior to lockdown, I was far too comfortable and I wasn't pushing myself as much as I could. And I'm not saying I'm, this is all I do. I have, I feel I have a very balanced life, but I could have been achieving more. And what lockdown actually did, the first thing was, yes, all the spas closed. So, the product side of our business went very quiet initially, because also, the spas didn't know when their doors were going to open up again. So they didn't know whether they were going to be placing orders. Basically speaking, with that type, it's a B2B business. With that type of business, they'll plan, 6 weeks in advance. So, that's a sizable part of the income that we obviously, we weren't sure when those next orders were going to come in again. Then also training. A lot of our training is on site. So we have a training academy where practitioners come and they train on site. And obviously we couldn't do on-site training. So there were two things that went out the window very quickly.
Goodness gracious. Yeah.
And but what actually happened was clients, students started to email us, and they said, we want to carry on with our training. We want to be ready for when our clients come back to us. And also we feel, a lot of them were saying, we really feel that they're very much ready for this type of treatment and this type of therapy. So then I developed one of our main courses online. So basically all of our courses are now available online. So that was a big project. And I worked with, our fabulous IT company to do all of that. And that means now, so that was a good thing that came out, because now it means actually anyone can access our training globally. I hadn't even thought of that, prior to lockdown. And the other thing that happened was then I also got two other training providers, platforms, actually asked me to teach for them because they were finding that, again, they needed to reach out to more people. They knew of my work in Ayurveda. And so these two, so I also developed 2 online training programs actually for the layperson. So one was an 8-week introducing Ayurveda course, which rolled out in the first part of the lockdown. And then I took people deeper. So I did another 4-session, developed another 4-session deeper course on living in health and harmony, which was based on Ayurveda but much more spiritually focused. So it was for those who wanted to, really go deeper. It was just, and I couldn't have asked for more, because, coming out of it, so much more has been created, and it's given me this multi-dimensional way to work, and it's also fulfilled me with greater satisfaction. The expansion, there's an expansion that comes as a leader, and And I've been reading a lot around this as well, and trying to sort of, understand and get my head around it. And my conclusion of all of this, Kul, is that actually there is a guidance, that we are being, there is, I feel that, and I think you feel that as well, that we are guided with our work. And that actually when everything comes together and we feel ready, that actually we're then ready to create that next potential as well, and actually take our work and grow the platform to another level. And so, would I have done all of this prior to lockdown? I don't think I would, because I think probably I wasn't ready, and actually lockdown triggered something that, made me think about it all on another level.
There's an old saying that I absolutely love, and I don't know where I heard this, but it said something like, and I'm going to paraphrase it, and it said, it's easy to be a leader when the ocean is nice and calm. It's when the waters get choppy and the storm comes in that your leadership is really tested. And hey, how true is that, Sunita? When we look around the world, right from the very highest level of political leadership or in organizations, corporates, we have seen leadership being tested, and we've seen those who excel in leadership and those who really are not that good a leader, because these storms have tested them and they failed. And it's happened with some of the biggest organizations that we can think of, that have gone to the wall. So I think that we've been through an incredible test. I think you're absolutely right. I think, before then, maybe we were complacent because the world was a great place to be in, and business might have been doing really well, or, you had no real challenges in your organization. Tri-Dosha was in all the spas and the hotels, and, the product side was rolling in. And you had some premises as well at that time. And then, of course, this comes in and it challenges everything that you are doing in terms of your business structure. And what you've done is just pivoted and thought, right, I need to do things differently. And of course, you wrote your book at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, on the premises, I think that's a really important point. Prior to lockdown, I'd opened up a beautiful health and wellness space. You came to visit, and it was just such a beautiful project. Creatively, I'd worked with a designer, created this really, and the idea was to really bring all the aspects of the business into one place. And we were having a great year. We'd been open for a year, and then lockdown hit, and it was very obvious there wasn't going to be anybody walking through the door for 2 years. And when I looked at my lease, there was a break clause coming up, so I had to make a decision. If I hadn't have taken that then, we would have been tied in, for another 2 years with nobody walking through the door. So I just had to wear my big girl pants and really look at it head on and think, what is the right thing to do now? And also, because we'd had a year of operating, I could also see that we could carry on delivering everything that we're delivering, all the services that we're delivering, actually without the venue. So I don't know. Now I look back and I think, did my ego creep in? I don't know. I don't think it did. I feel it was definitely a journey I needed to go on. It was definitely an experience I needed to have. I feel a lot more educated when it comes to understanding about the spas that we work with and the clinics that we work with and the wellness centres, and actually what their business is about. So I feel that my relationship with those customers has evolved and grown. And I also realised that actually operating a venue is a whole different thing. It's another business that you have to take on. It's got to have its own, strategy and business plan and team and these were all things that I wasn't personally skilled in. So I was having to learn on the job as well, and it was just I just learned a lot. So whereas somebody else might have thought, oh no, I'm going to hang on to it, I'm going to hang on to it, I'm going to ride the wave, we'll just crack on again. But actually with that project, I could see after a year that actually we could carry on fine without it. So yeah, it humbled me actually. I feel it really humbled me.
Yeah, I think, we were talking earlier on before we jumped on air, and one of the things that both you and I have said is that the whole last 2 years has been a growing experience. I feel like I've matured so much over the last 2 years in the way that, not only in the way that I run my business, but in the work that I do and the depth in that work. I'm doing things now with organizations, with leaders, with teams that I wasn't doing 2 years ago. But it feels like I've been doing it forever because it just feels deeper and it feels right and it feels very much value based, which is so important to me. There's one thing that you talked about, Sunita, that I want to touch upon, and I think you're really good at this, by the way. It's a powerful leadership trait if you want to be a really good leader. I think it's relationship building. Now you're great at building relationships, and you've had some incredible relationships. But the way, I mean, when you and I met, and I can't even remember where it was because I feel like I've known you forever now. But we resonated so powerfully, and I remember that we met up over a cup of coffee, which ended up, well, it was a green tea for me, but it ended up like 2 or 3 later, and it was like 2 hours in our first meeting. So tell me, what is it about relationship building? If somebody were to be listening in on this, and it's a young leader who, or maybe even an experienced leader who really struggles to build long, deep, lasting relationships, what would be the tips that you would give to them?
The first thing is that when we grow together. I truly believe that. And to create something amazing, to create an energy in a business, in a concept, in a service, we'll always need to work with others. It's not one person's idea that brings it to life. It's not one person's formulation. It's not, it's a collective force. And so the first thing is, and you talk about it a lot, about awareness, is that recognizing that actually, this energy, it's like a stream, it's like a flow of a stream, and it takes a different pace in each of us. And so when that energy comes together collectively, we have something really fantastic. So I think, relationship building is about having the awareness that it's of benefit to all of those involved to build good relations, to respect each other, and also for the collective growth of whatever it is you're creating and putting out into the world. Trust is a big thing as well. So many times we hear, and I've had the experience myself as well in the early days. I had some, none of us goes into business not having some shady, experiences. And but I feel very early on in my career, there were a few things that happened, and I learned quite quickly. I really learned. I got the message, so that's been well for me as time has gone on. But also, I never look at anything we've done and think, oh, it's just, I did it myself. I didn't. I certainly, we couldn't survive without our relationships with our suppliers. Our training wouldn't flourish without our students. My practice wouldn't flourish if I didn't have, clients to support. Our brand, wouldn't grow, and people wouldn't feel the essence and the energy and the message unless we work well with spas and wellness centres. So it's all a collective force. And sometimes I think if you feel I guess with some leaders, if you feel blocked within yourself, then that's also going to block your progression, I think, in making these connections. And nurturing, it's all about nurturing connections as well, because ultimately, if you're creating something and you want that to be left to the next generation, then there's a lot of energy that goes into that, and it doesn't just come from one person.
Yeah, so true. I mean, relationships for me are so critical, and I was talking to somebody this morning, and the realization hit me. you know what? I actually don't market our services. I don't go out there and, I've paid for the odd advert, but besides that, I don't do any marketing. So all the work that we get is actually through referrals. And the realization that I had this morning was that the reason why we're getting repeat work or referral work is because I've taken the time to build relationships. And when you practice and practice and practice something, it eventually becomes so fluid that you do it without thinking. So for me, relationship building is critical. It's like a core value for me now. And I do it without thinking, but you're so right. You have to build trust in that relationship. Trust for me is like a foundation. On top of trust, you can build everything. So trust is critical for me. Values are very, very important for me. I have a saying that I live by, that I'll connect with like-minded people, but only ever truly work with like-valued people, because it's like a next tier down. It's a much deeper tier. So for me, relationships, so many leaders do struggle with this, and so many organizations are fragmented because there's no trust, or the relationships between the top, middle, and bottom ends of the organization just aren't there. They're not in sync. And relationships fail in all sorts of guises, whether from romantic relationships to business relationships. They fail because we haven't taken the time to nurture those relationships, as you say, because I think we can get a bit complacent. Once we form a relationship, if you're not careful, you can get complacent and say, hey, it's all sorted, it's done, dusted. But then things happen along the way. And if you haven't nurtured it, you haven't added strength to that relationship. And I think that's what it's about.
I agree. It's the layers are so much more deeper. When I look at our, if I look at our spa clients, for the most part, as soon as we start working with them, we're with them for years. There's not a lot of change. Students, again, because of the reputation of, just my training academy and, the work, it's, they come back time and time again for other courses as well. And it's very easy. We also talked about this. It's very easy to get swayed into, I think, to the sort of the glossiness of a new partnership. Not really considering actually, are those values the same? Is this going to work? Are we sort of thinking on that same similar vibration? What do we actually hope to achieve from this? And I think you're only really going to get that once you start genuinely, authentically working together and asking the questions. And at the moment, there's another, there's another evolution in my business. It would have been quite easy to just run with it and just go, this all sounds great, let's sign it off, let's go for it. But actually, I'll be working with 2 other people, and we are actually going to get to know each other better, because this will be a long-term thing. And just as you said, Kul, it's kind of like, I also feel that maturity and that growth and thinking just a little bit more slowly, but also bigger picture about everything as well. Because again, it's a lot of energy goes into all of our relationships. And when you start a project, you want a long-term project, and you want a long, healthy relationship with the people that you work with as well. It's all part of it.
It really is, and long may it continue. I hope that that new partnership that you're considering, I hope that works out and pans out well for you. But you've got some exciting things coming up just before we wrap up, Sunita, haven't you? You've got a really exciting 3-day residency in Bedruthen, and I've never been to Bedruthen, by the way, but I understand it's really, really beautiful. So I Googled it very quickly. It looks idyllic. Do you want to just tell the listeners, just in case anybody's interested, what they might expect on this?
So as part of the publicity for my book, I've been doing a book tour. So our beautiful spa partners have been hosting these amazing events for me all over the country. And so this one particularly will be with our partners in Cornwall, at Bedruthen, and it's going to be at the end of May. It's a 3-day event, but each day you can come and enjoy the activities, and then you can go off and enjoy your holiday. The Bedruthen is in a beautiful part of Cornwall called Morgan Porth. So you're overlooking, the sea. It's fantastic for kids as well. It's very kids friendly, the hotel. And my part of this is I'll be presenting a sort of a 90-minute presentation, introduction, overview of Ayurveda, connecting it to everyday life. And then in the afternoon, I'm hosting a guided walk as well. So taking everyone down to the cliffs and giving them a journal. And in my book, there's some questions to get you thinking about your health and well-being. So we'll be journaling together and just enjoying it, enjoying that time. So a little bit of meditation in there as well, and we all get to enjoy each other's company. So that's really what's happening down there.
Sounds idyllic. I mean, Cornwall is probably one of my favourite places in England anyway. But and that time of the year, I'm guessing that the sun's going to be out. So, you know what? Get yourselves down there and learn a bit more about Ayurveda. It's fascinating. Trust me, I've had the lecture. Sunita, if anybody wanted to find out more about this, the residency, where would they need to visit?
Yeah, if they want to just drop me an email. So my name's Sunita, Sunita, at Tri-Dosha, dosha.co.uk, and I will whiz you over the information on it. Brilliant. And like I said, friends, family, it's a wonderful, few days away. And just like you, Kul, it's one of my most favourite places in the country. And really, it doesn't matter what the weather's like. If it's sunny, fantastic. But also, they're so used to all the elements. Pop your wellies on, we'll still walk down. Absolutely.
Go and splash in some puddles, I say. We'll make sure all the contact details are in the description. So, guys, go and check out the Sunita Passi residency. Learn about the book. Get deep down and with Ayurveda and find out what Ayurveda is all about. It's fascinating. And go and enjoy Cornwall. Sunita, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we will catch up for a cup of tea, no doubt.
Thank you very much. Thank you.